Preview Week 11 edition. Myself, John Jansen, and Joe Tansey breaking down all things college football, heading to a good weekend of action. Not bad. I think there are some good games, interesting games that we could talk about. And also, we have another week of college football playoff rankings. And that's where I want to start with you, Joe Tansey. You can follow at JTansey90. Myself, again, John Jansen at JJansen34. Playoff rankings out. Not much has changed. They really just could have said, hey, guys, it's about the same. I know they had to change everything outside of like the top 5, 6 teams, but still, the ones that matter, the rankings that matter, or at least the spots that matter, it's not really much has changed. Do you think that should have been the case?
Yeah, although I'd like to make a petition right now because this is an entertainment business. Like, let's be honest with the college football playoff rankings. Until Thanksgiving, until after Thanksgiving weekend, really, it's an entertainment thing. I desperately want Ohio State 1, Michigan 2. Like, if Michigan wins this weekend, give me Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, and we can build up to the entire weekend with Ohio State, Michigan 1 versus
That's the way it should go. Okay. I did this with Oklahoma. All right. That was the team I zeroed in on. A team that's like, this is a fraud. They're not as good as people think that they are. And I'm going to continue that, even though they're going to prove me wrong a lot of the times. And then when I'm right once out of like 12 games, I'm going to scream it as loud as I can. I'm doing this with Ohio State now. There is no way that team should. I mean, we got to use common sense sometimes. I know we got to use resume, and I know that teams have to prove themselves. Like Michigan has to prove themselves, right? Like we have to let Michigan prove themselves first before we crown them with the number 1 spot, whatever. Georgia also hasn't lost a game, though, and they've proven themselves. That should be the number 1 team. They look like it. They've played like it. That's the number 1 team. I'm not pretending another week, Joe, that there should be a 1 next to Ohio State's name. I can't do that. I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It was a horrible week last week against Rutgers. I don't care that they pull away in these games. I don't care that they beat Penn State and Notre Dame. By the way, those 2 wins don't look as impressive. They're impressive. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's not a lot of impressive wins in college football. I get that, because the only thing that'll impress, us, at least, sometimes in my eyes, is like playoff contenders. And they're legitimate, the best college football teams. There's not many of them. So Ohio State has a chance against Michigan. But again, I'm asking them in their like 1 chance to do well. But I don't like what I've seen. And I think it's very close to being very much fraud-like. Ohio State's still really talented, so it's not as much as Oklahoma. Oklahoma, it never looked like a college football playoff contender to me, and it seems like they're definitely almost out of the running now. But Ohio State certainly has the talent defensively. They have the Heisman Trophy candidate in Marvin Harrison Jr., who is maybe one of the best wide receivers we've seen in college football. It's like all of this stuff is great, but the offense is so slow to move. And it's so dependent on one player. Now, Henderson as well can get some work done, but the quarterback position it's not only a question mark, it's bad. Like we can just say it and just plainly set this, I guess, kind of marking of Ohio State. They have to win with bad quarterback play. Like that's just the way it's going to be this season.
But you're doing the exact thing that the playoff committee wants you to do.
Yep.
Like that's really what it is. Like the entire the entire thing that you just laid out with Ohio State is exactly what the committee wants you to do. The committee wants you to overreact and say that Ohio State is not a fraudulent number 1, but shouldn't be number 1 over Georgia and Michigan. And while I do think that's the case, does it matter at this point? No.
No, it doesn't. It does not matter.
But I agree. I agree with you with the flaws that Ohio State has. Because
it's not a point where you can like maybe it can get fixed. Like we had the question about Carson Beck, right? The same question. What's Carson Beck going to be like with Georgia? I can see him progressively getting better each and every week. And now he's not only become a question mark, I think he's become is he a strength now for Georgia? Like, I think he's playing well enough that we could say this guy is caught up with the rest of his team, and he is now not a problem. He's a really good asset to have. Kyle McCord is actively working against everything Ohio State's trying to do.
Right, but I think the thing with Ohio State is their defense is so phenomenal.
Extremely talented.
Like
extremely talented.
If you look at the path to beat Michigan, it's a low-scoring game. And this is kind of leading to the point we're going to have with Ohio State and Michigan in 2 weeks is I think it's going to be like a 17-13 type game. It's going to be very similar to the Ohio State.
And that's how Ohio State's going to win games. That's right. It's not what what they were when Justin Fields is there or CJ Stroud. It is absolutely that. They're going to have to win ugly Big Ten games. And
But they've been able to win those games.
Yes, they have. Exactly. They've been able to do it.
And
That's why it's a little bit different for me. When I talk about like Oklahoma to me was always just not ever in these conversations. Ohio State firmly is. They're good, but it's just that they have such a glaring giant issue at the most important position. I wouldn't even say in college sports is the most important position because teams with the, not the best quarterback can still be great. Stetson Bennett was a great college quarterback. I would never say he was like the best. So you can win without the best, but still Kyle McCord's just, it's not good.
But the thing with Ohio State is they've shown us twice now, the Maryland game and the Rutgers game, and I'm sure there are more examples of this, but these are the two that stand out, is they've had okay first halves, but they found a way to win in the second half and found a way to win in commanding fashion. So it's not like they're doing this for 4 quarters.
But can they find a way look, Notre Dame and Penn State's offenses aren't good. Let's just call it the way it is. And I think those matchups stylistically worked really well for Ohio State. That is bad offense meets great defenses, and Ohio State's defense is just better than almost everyone else's at this point. What happens when you go up against a better offense, an offense that college football offenses are always going to best defenses at some point, especially
right. But the counter to that is, and if you're an Ohio State fan, this is how you're going to build this up the next few weeks is, well, our defense is very good, and that's going to be the way we beat Michigan, and who knows what's going to happen with Harbaugh.
With Michigan, I could see that. Yeah, Michigan's a little bit tough for me because I know McCarthy is getting even a lot of like NFL attention now. I just don't see it with that offense. It's weird at times. It's not it's not as explosive as you would think a team like Michigan's should be.
With that being said, Georgia and Michigan are still the 2 best teams in the country.
I think so. I think I would have to be proven otherwise to think differently.
And I think we're going to see that even more this week. And look, let's just call it what it is at this point with Lane Kiffin and James Franklin. They can't win the big game. They just can't. It's been proven year after year. Yeah. And with Lane Kiffin, a lot more with Ole Miss against the Bama. He hasn't played Georgia, but against Bama, he can't get the job done. So now with Franklin, it's proven he can't get the job done. And I think, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves into the preview, but
yeah,
Penn State, what they did last week is going to mess with a lot of people. Because yes, Drew Aller had his best performance of the season. Everything looked great, but it was against Maryland. And I think people are they're gonna fall for it. Games in Happy Valley, Michigan's first real test, if you want to call it that. But if you watch these two teams over an entire season, it's very clear who the better team is, who the more complete team is. And it's Michigan. And when you have a track record like James Franklin does, that's really just horrifically bad against top 10, top 5 teams, at some point you just have to call a spade and realize what it is. The same thing with Lane Kiffin.
Oh, definitely with Lane Kiffin as well.
Ole Miss is going to do the same thing they do every year. They're going to go 10-2, compete for a New Year's Six berth. If not, they're going to be on a New Year's Day or one of the the Citrus, Outback, Gator, whatever bowl that is, and they're going to be like, oh well, we Lane Kiffin's still got the 3rd best team in the SEC, and the 2 teams that beat us are Georgia and Alabama, and that's the way it's going to go. That's the way college football works. Neither of these teams can take the step up. It's been proven. Now, I think if you look at the 2, Penn State's got the better chance to pull off an upset, but everything has to be perfect.
Sure.
And look, don't count out the spite factor here. Excuse me. I think
you were battling over there, Joe.
I think that's my wife, the Penn State alum, casting a spell on me from the other room, saying, "How dare you say bad things about James Franklin?"
You can't do that in a Penn State household.
She would have those mystical powers.
Yeah.
Penn State has a better chance to win, but look at what they did against Ohio State. It doesn't.
Right. That loss inspires no confidence in me. It's not like there were some things that didn't bounce their way, and it will at home. It was their offense. Their offense is never good enough in these spots. and against these kinds of defenses.
Which
The only thing I can really say is this is Michigan's first real test on the road this season. So maybe it is a close game, and maybe this is a one. The battle tests Michigan as they get to Ohio State and obviously towards the college football playoff portion of the season. But I don't see that happening because it's mostly it's Penn State's offense that just can't keep up in these games.
Here's the thing with Michigan, though, because we like to do this thing as college football fans, and it is one of our tried and true things to do every year with the who have they played, right?
We do it all the time.
It's the one thing we love to fall back on, to argue against a team in the top 5. Well, who have they played? And some people will do that with Michigan. But when you look at Michigan's entire body of work,
it's still good. It's still really good. Yeah.
It's not just good. It's like elite. A team hasn't scored more than 14 points on them. They're consistently winning games by 25 to 30 points. Like, it's a well-oiled machine. And don't rule out the spite factor here, John. I think the Harbaugh stuff actually benefits Michigan on the field.
Well, this is the team against East Carolina was rolling out the fours for Harbaugh. He was suspended for the first game.
College coaches.
What a weird team, man.
College coaches are.
Is Michigan an easily hateable team? I think we're proving it by the most unscandalous scandal in college football as we realize every single team is stealing signals, as we're finding out in the Big Ten. But everybody just hates Jim Harbaugh and Michigan so much. We don't care how little this actually of an issue is. We just want to. Hey,
I think Harbaugh is such a hateable character.
The team is so weird, man. Who's gonna do that when you line in the first game of the season against a nothing school that you're gonna beat by 30 anyway, and you line up single file and put up the fours for our Jim Harbaugh? Come on, man.
College football is its own unique animal and will never change.
It's a cult. It
really is.
Yes.
And they're playing the biggest cult outside of Texas A&M.
So I do to get off of Michigan a little bit and to talk about the rest of the college football playoff. So I don't know if you saw the video when Houston ended up playing the Lakers and Dylan Brooks is just sitting on the other side of the court, staring at LeBron during warmups for an uncomfortable amount of time. That right now is Alabama staring at the rest of the top 5 of the college football playoff and just waiting.
Well, see,
when are you going to mess up? When are one of you going to mess up?
The difference between the two is LeBron would torch Dylan Brooks.
When Alabama can.
Like that's
a little bit of it. Even though I think Houston
that's offensive. They did, but
hey, don't shoot Dylan Brooks, all right? Do not dare slander Dylan Brooks on this show.
That's still offensive to Alabama.
It is, but it's just they are waiting for somebody to mess, and they are primed to take a. I mean, this. Where would you?
But are they waiting for somebody though?
Well, if they have one loss and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, they're in. Yeah, I completely.
So they're not. Alabama ain't waiting for anybody.
So how do you feel? Because I think there are some. I think I was talking with was it Beef that said this about Alabama, that they look like the best team in college football. I don't know who it was, but I heard somebody say this. It might have been you, but I heard that. I was like, they might be. I don't know, because I don't think there's a firm number one team at this point. So I think you can go outside the box a little bit to a one-loss team and not just take the unbeatens. Alabama looks awesome, man. Alabama looks really good right now.
I think you could fairly power rank 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 Alabama.
I completely agree. I think that's how it should be.
Because Florida State's a playoff team, but they've shown some flaws in certain games.
Washington's shown some flaws. I love Washington. I think Washington is a really good team. Even I think Washington has flaws.
Washington's defense is concerning.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was going to be coming in.
And ever since the Oregon game, Washington has been suspect.
Hanging on.
Stanford, if they complete that 4th down play, who knows what happens on the rest of that drive? But Washington.
Still, that's what it's coming down to. It shouldn't just be a play or two determining your game against Stanford. You should be You should be dominating that team with the ranking that they have.
So that brings me to this conversation this week. Obviously, we're going to lose most likely going to lose 2 playoff contenders in Penn State and Ole Miss. So then, do any of these teams that are outside of the marquee games, so Florida State against Miami, which I wish was bigger as a college football.
It
nostalgia.
should be.
Like
It should be.
I wish that was because growing up that was the marquee game. It was FSU
And I
Miami
think
every
Miami.
year.
I mean, Miami doesn't have the best. That's still a really good team. Like I think that could be a competitive game.
That's being
I know it's
nice to Miami.
14-point spread. Miami's not that bad. They're
not
dumb
really good.
Sometimes. They're dumb sometimes, but yeah. I mean, it should be a fun game. I think it will be.
It'll be fun. I don't think they're really good though. Utah, Washington, the way Washington's playing and Utah embracing this underdog and their defense, that could potentially be squirrely for Washington. And then I don't think Oregon has to worry about USC. So, I mean, is this the week that
No?
Because
completely no?
No, because the one big difference between Washington and Oregon, and it's probably the reason why Oregon's going to end up in the college football playoff, is Oregon's defense is playing very well.
Oregon's defense is great, yeah.
A Pac-12 team with a defense is dangerous. I honestly think if right now, my four would be Georgia, Michigan, FSU, and Oregon.
That's what it'd be right now? Okay.
Right.
So you're leaving out Ohio. I thought I was going to be slandering Ohio State left and right here, and you're the one who's like, "Yeah,
we're not slandering. I think it's just Michigan beating Ohio State
for sure." Yeah, that's obviously part
of it. Like Ohio State would be 5 in that ranking.
I mean, for Ohio State, one loss is how far can these Notre Dame and Penn State wins carry them if they do lose to Michigan?
Well, it won't be able. They would need help.
They certainly,
but it all depends on. So that weird tiebreaker, I think, with the Big Ten East.
Because at this point, Alabama's resume is starting to look great.
Right. But Alabama doesn't get in without beating Georgia.
Oh, they have to be Georgia.
Right.
Absolutely.
So anything we say about Alabama in the playoff is
they have to win the
SEC. Georgia. Yeah. And Texas feels like the lame duck. Like if you were to put the Power 5 conference champions up in a power ranking, Texas is probably going to be 5th.
All right, now let's get to let's move on. Do you want to talk about Louisville at all? They're like they're hanging around for some reason.
They're hanging around, but they're not relevant until
they're definitely the guy in the party. Like, does anyone actually know this guy? What is he doing here?
Well, we have one of those teams every year, don't we?
But not Louisville. Not
Louisville, but like there's always one or two teams at this point in the season. Definitely, it's usually North Carolina plays this role. Where they just hang around. They're like 11th or 12th. We say, should we take them seriously? And then we're not going to take them seriously until.
But the thing is, we shouldn't even question that. They're not good. They're not good.
But they're better than the rest of the teams in the rankings right now.
I think Oregon State's better than Louisville. I think Tennessee, maybe. I don't know. Tennessee, I'm not in love with. Missouri, better than Louisville. Oklahoma is better than Louisville.
Right, but you're falling into
better than Louisville. Notre Dame's not better than Louisville. Notre Dame might not actually be that good.
You're falling into the Clemson ain't played nobody trap with talk about the ACC.
Yeah, it's different. It's different with Louisville.
Is it though?
Clemson we knew back then was great. It's just obviously what would it look like once they play the best teams, but.
I think you're forgetting like Clemson before they won titles had so many flaws.
Great, we knew they were talented. Louisville's not talented. Not that talented.
I don't think we have to worry about Louisville, but the only way we talk about Louisville within
they just don't belong. They don't belong. They don't belong.
The only way we talk about Louisville in the playoff context is if Penn State and Ole Miss both lose. There's one or two more losses, and Florida State slips up at some point.
Yeah, none of that's happening. And also, Louisville's going to slip up at some point. They lose I'll say that they lose the last 2 games.
They're hanging on.
They're going to be at Miami. They lose to Miami, and they lose to Kentucky.
I can see them losing to Kentucky.
I can see them losing on the road to Miami. On the road
I think that's dependent on what Miami does against FSU.
Well, speaking of that, let's move on. Big games for this week. Which ones have your attention the most?
I think I've already played my hand here.
State, but yeah, I think you did.
I'm taking Michigan -4.5. I'm taking Georgia -10. I mean, until both James Franklin and Lane Kiffin can prove I'm dead wrong about them, and even if they win this weekend, I'd still be dead. I'd still justify all these bets. Like Georgia has beaten all challengers. 10 points. Look,
George is just getting better too. I feel like
right.
that their offense just gets better almost every week.
Ole Miss only put up 10 against Alabama.
Yeah,
I mean,
they looked horrible offensively.
Ole Miss's offense looked really good against everybody else in the SEC, but then when they went to play a real team, they faltered. And look at Penn State. You can apply the same logic. They've looked really good against the bad teams in the Big Ten, which they've done forever under James Franklin. But when they went into their big game against Ohio State, Drew Aller couldn't throw a pass more than 5 yards down the field. And Michigan's going to do the same thing. I honestly, if this game was at night and not the big noon game, I'd be all on Penn State. But
I've heard that from multiple people.
Like this is a whiteout.
I mean, I know the night game is fantastic for Penn State, but still,
it's a whole nother level. It really is. There are just certain places in college football where a 7:30 kickoff is incrementally better than noon. LSU is one of those. Penn State is one of those. It's different. It really is different because it makes it feel special. And this is just it's a noon game. Michigan, look, I think Michigan is going to win in spite of the NCAA at this point and the Big Ten. I feel like.
Yeah, I know I've been seeing some things about what could possibly happen. I've heard 3 games for somebody. I don't know who, but I don't know. Something's going to come down, and I don't know when or how long the punishments are going to be and what the punishments are. But I do know
I think if a suspension comes down today, it's the worst thing to happen to Penn State.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know.
I
don't know what it does. I don't know. I don't want to use that as part of my analysis on what I think happens in this game.
It's college sports, though. You have to.
It's
college sports. We just talked about.
But at some point, we're just like we're talking about something that I don't know what the difference really makes, good or bad.
But we just talked about a game starting at 7:30 compared to noon making a difference.
We're talking about one of the best coaches in college football right now that wouldn't be on the sideline.
Right.
I think we're also talking like this, especially on the road.
We're also talking about a bunch of kids who have rallied around their cult leader before. Like, I think it does more harm than good if you're Penn State. I think you want Harbaugh on the sidelines. I think if you're Penn State, you don't want Michigan to have more motivation on a national stage. Like if you're Michigan and say Harbaugh does get suspended today, you're on the plane and in the meeting rooms tonight, just playing that up, the entire coaching staff. Everyone doesn't want us to win. The Big Ten doesn't want us to win. The NCAA doesn't want us to win. That could do wonders for 18 to 22-year-olds. It doesn't work in the NFL. It absolutely would not work in the NFL. But in college football, it does. You have to play that into the way you approach this game. Michigan is going to use this. We said this. It's their most important game yet. They're going to use this as an FU to the entire country. And I would not be surprised if Michigan wins this game. You hear the players and you hear the coaches say something along those lines because of all the attention they've been getting off the field. That's just how this works. I understand that it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how much difference it's. I don't know. I just don't.
It does.
I don't know.
Absolutely does. Guarantee you. This is the only sport you can factor that into.
This is like the kind of thing, though. It's like a coach gets fired, and it's going to inspire the team. It sometimes does. It sometimes doesn't. I don't know. We don't. There's nothing I can do to really back behind anyway. Good.
I think all you need to know is the way Michigan responded when Harbaugh missed the games at the start of the season. Like you said, they put the fours up and did the tribute to him.
Yeah, they were weird, and they really didn't play that well in that game.
It's weird. All right. It's weird, but it shows you the relationship within the program.
For sure. But it's not like they put up 60 in that game. They were just fine. They were all right.
Right. But I think you're underestimating how these things work behind the scenes in college football. I think Michigan's the better team anyway. Harbaugh
Right.
or no,
That's
Harbaugh or
that's
no Harbaugh, they're the better team. But I think you're underestimating just like how much motivation they'd gain from Harbaugh being suspended. I think it's the real deal. I really do.
All right, let's move on to our bets for this weekend. I am getting crushed in college football, so we'll start with you.
I am not. So you want to just roll them off like we did last week?
Yeah, you can just rattle them off. Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to bet SMU tonight, but that number has gone up 4 points in the last, I guess, like 3 hours since I looked at it. It's now at 20.
Yeah, that's a lot. Wait, what is that up to? Yeah, it's
It's up
20.
to 20 now. I wanted it at 16
You know
and
what?
a
That's
half.
just weird. I mean, because they can score with anybody, but their defense is just bad.
So I'm staying away from the Friday games. I'll probably bet on the NBA in-season tournament, which I'm sure you have an opinion on too, but that's for another show and another time.
Yeah.
So let's roll them off. I'm going to go chronological order to make this very easy. Michigan -4.5. We already broke that down. Alabama -11 at Kentucky. Kentucky's a big fat fraud when it comes to big games as well. You saw them against Georgia. They are what they are. They're going to win 8 games, playing the Music City Bowl, and Mark Stoops has a job for life. Alabama is playing phenomenal football right now. They're going to stop Kentucky's best player, the running back Davis. Devin Leary has no shot in this game. Alabama -11. Kansas. Let's give Kansas some credit here for not letting down, not suffering a letdown after the game against Oklahoma. Beat Iowa State pretty handily. At home against Texas Tech, -3.5. Texas Tech, we had no business ranking them at the start of the season. They've just been bad on the road. They're under 500. They might not make a bowl game. Nebraska, money line, +105. They're a 2-point home underdog. Maryland's not good. Tagovailoa against a good defense, not good. Maryland, again, does this thing. They're good in September and October.
This is a bad matchup for them.
And
I think on the road against a defense like that, it's tough.
And on top of that, Nebraska needs to bounce back after losing to Michigan State. I think that's a game where they
of course they lost to Michigan State.
Of course. Yeah, I should have read that too.
It's Big Ten West. They lose to Michigan State. They beat Maryland.
Right.
That's just how it goes. That's just how the world works in the Big Ten West.
It does. Liberty Old Dominion over 60. Liberty's been playing some fantastic offensive football of late. They're, I believe, in competition with Tulane for the G5 spot in the New Year's Six. But a very electric offense. They've been putting up 30 to 40 points each game. And Old Dominion, not great. By the way, thought this was a conference game. It's not. It's Sunbelt versus CUSA.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's conference realignment has ruined everything.
Yeah, it's better not to think about it.
Memphis, Charlotte over 52. Memphis's offense. I really like what they're doing right now with Seth Hennigan. And Charlotte, I think is very susceptible.
Memphis has surprised me this year in that way.
They have. My favorite pick on the board this week is a very weird one, but one that will make sense when I say it. Oklahoma State UCF under 65.5. There's no way Oklahoma State is up for this game in the first half. This is the letdown of letdown spots. But their defense.
No, that's a better way to put, because I would have loved to bet UCF. I hate the way UCF has looked this year, so it's hard to do that. Yeah, this is perfect. Oklahoma State looks great, and then they lose in a game like this, and you go, how did Oklahoma State lose that game?
Gundy always loses this game, but I think
always.
I think the important thing here is UCF's offense is not great, and Oklahoma State's defense
is just almost downright bad.
Yeah. And Oklahoma State's defense is its better unit of the two. I think it's a very low-scoring game in the first half, and then Oklahoma State runs the ball with Ollie Gordon, wakes up in the second half. Even if Oklahoma State didn't beat Oklahoma in Bedlam last week, I don't see a path to 65 points because Oklahoma State's defense is very good. So I think their offense sleepwalks, and then their defense plays an incredible 4 quarters like they have. I'm betting Iowa, money line, -115. I just think their defense is going to take away the one thing that Rutgers does really well, and that's run the ball. Rutgers, great season, but I'm good. Kansas State, -21 against Baylor. This goes back to what they've done against Houston and TCU at home in 3 weeks before the Texas game. They just obliterate the bad teams at home, and that's what they're going to keep doing. I'm going to ride that trend until it dies out. Texas State, over 57 against Coastal Carolina.
Nice.
Former Eagles great G.J. Kinney has Texas State bowl eligible. Both of these defenses are really bad, give up over 380 total yards per game. Texas State, they score a lot, but they also give up over 400 yards per game. This is a game that could go pretty back and forth very fast. Speaking of offenses that look pretty decent now, Arkansas, life.
Arkansas, yes. I don't know how we're still talking about Arkansas, but yeah, I've been impressed. I have been.
They really impressed me in that Florida game last week on the road. Very sound offense. Firing their offensive coordinator worked. I think they win this game against Auburn at home, -2.5. By the way, KJ Jefferson, how many years of eligibility does he have left?
He's going to be in college football forever. What do you mean?
Right.
He'll be there as long as he can.
I've been betting Stanford as an underdog for the last few weeks, and it's been very profitable. So I'm going to take them +21 against Oregon State. They're frisky. I don't think they'll win this outright, but Stanford's played some pretty decent football in the last month. They competed with Washington. I think this is a game where they at least stay within the 3. I'm on Georgia, mentioned that. Georgia Southern, -2.5 against Marshall. Marshall hasn't scored over 10 points in their last 3 games. They're bad.
Yeah, very bad.
Very bad. So we're going to keep that fading Marshall trend up. We won with App State against them last week. Rice UTSA over 57. Frank Harris, the Roadrunners are
offense is humming,
right.
man. Ever since he not only just got back, but also settled down after his injury, like got a game or 2 under his belt. Man, he has been electric. Had a really good game last week against North Texas. I think Frank Harris has been awesome. It's good to see too.
Right. It's good to see a team that we fell in love with a few years ago.
Yeah, and just, man, I love good college quarterbacks, and that's one,
right.
You're not going to think about because he's not in college football playoff discussions, but man, that's always I love good group of 5 quarterbacks that are able to play this well in college football.
I have a soft spot in my heart for them. And then my final pick, the USC Oregon under 76. I know USC's defense is bad, but Oregon's defense is very good. There's going to be a point where USC's offense just doesn't score points, and I think this is it. I think we're almost overreacting to how incredible that Washington USC game was. I think this game doesn't even sniff the 60s. I could see Oregon doing something to USC like they did to Colorado. I could see this game being, 45-10, and we're like, well, that total was set way too high.
So, is that it for you, Joe? Is that finally?
That is, yes. I have a nice little 16-pack again this week.
Lord. I have.
I want to before you go. I am 81, 73-2 this season. So
that's great. I'm not doing well at all. I have a lot of underdogs this week.
I love it. I love it.
I haven't had very many this season, so it's kind of weird that I'm going this direction. Maybe this is the week I do well. I like Wake Forest. North Carolina State has to go back to Brennan Armstrong because MJ Morse is sitting out for the.
What a weird story.
Unbelievably weird.
He's gone, right?
Probably. But Brennan Armstrong's not. Brennan Armstrong's actually back. He's back. But he's just been horrible. I think it's a weird situation for NC State. Seems like they found it out pretty late as well. So I'm going to go Wake Forest. I think NC State's offense is going to struggle. I'm going Wake Forest money line at home +105. Arkansas laying the 2.5. All the things you just mentioned been really impressive. The offense, KJ Jefferson, good veteran. I just don't think Auburn has the juice.
By the way, if Auburn gets like an actual real quarterback in the portal,
for sure, they don't have. They could be really good. Yeah, they don't have that this year. I'm actually going. I'm buying low on this team, and I know the spot doesn't seem all of it. I'm going USC +15.5. Okay. The defense has been a problem, but still, this is Lincoln Riley's offense. This is Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, I think, because he's so weird, I think gets a bad rep. But the guy's a baller, man. The guy loves to play, and I think he's gonna to show up in the game, play well. Oregon's defense is great, but this is an offense that can score against anyone. Again, when they want to, things going well, whatever. When it's just not all falling apart. I don't think it's falling apart that much. It's just these games are just slipping away from them so slowly. They could have beat Washington, and they just didn't. Defense, obviously, a big part of that. And Oregon's going to score a lot of points, but I think USC's offense shows up. 15.5 is a lot of points. I think they can keep this within 2 touchdowns.
Why don't we meet in the middle and say like 35-21? I get the under, like you get USC.
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
You know what? Something like that. Absolutely. That works for me. And Oregon might want to do that. Not keep away from USC's offense, but yeah, just make USC kind of a little uncomfortable, slow down their possessions and play a style of game that USC just doesn't want to. So yeah, I could see that, but 15 and a half is a lot of points. That's the only reason I'm doing this. It's just USC I know is I'm not their best, and this is not what we thought they were going to be. But still, there's still a certain standard of play that I think has been pretty good for them. It's probably not going to result in a win. They still, I think, could be close in this game. 15 and a half is just a lot. Missouri giving up points to Tennessee. I don't care that they just played Georgia. I don't care that this may be a letdown. I don't care. Missouri's better. Missouri's just a really good football team.
Do you care if Luther Burden might not play?
I don't care.
Because that's what scared me away from this game.
I still love Missouri. I love everything about that team. I think they're better than Tennessee. Tennessee's offense just doesn't do it for me. I like Missouri at home here. I think they get the job done. So I like Missouri +3. I'm with you on Nebraska as well. I'm just going money line there +105. I think their defense is going to play really well against Maryland. Maryland in these spots, offense doesn't do well on the road. They put up points when they're against Illinois at home, something like that. But in these kind of games where they're playing a pretty good defense, they're on the road doing it. This is just a tough matchup that Maryland just doesn't seem to usually play well in. So +105 for Nebraska, I like. And then BYU +8.5. BYU and Iowa State to me are essentially even. I don't think Ohio State's 8.5 points better on the road against BYU. It's going to be a bad football game.
Yes.
This is one that you're not going to want to watch. There's going to be so much better college football. But let's be honest. BYU is their 3 losses have been on the road, and TCU I don't know if is the best, but Texas is really good, and West Virginia surprised a lot of people this year. So it's not that bad of a loss. 37-7 is not good. It's not that bad of a loss. They're back at home. Iowa State's only beaten TCU, Cincinnati, and Baylor, and other bad teams. Again, road game for Iowa State. BYU's been better at home than they have been on the road. I think 8.5 is too many points for teams that I think are essentially almost the same thing.
Iowa State BYU is gonna be that game where everyone falls asleep to and wakes up on Sunday morning, and who won that game? Was it BYU? Because it's on right after Ole Miss Georgia on ESPN. So
you're right. It's 10 o'clock. It's a late game, and everybody's going to be watching probably still Oregon USC anyway.
It's been a long day of football, and you just happen to doze off, and you wake up in the fourth quarter and BYU's up. Sure, whatever. That's what this game gives off.
100%. Joe, that is it for week 11. Appreciate you giving us a billion plays, and good stuff, Joe. Appreciate it as always.
Go Dogs. Your Dogs and
I know I have a ton of dogs, which is good. I haven't done that a lot this year, which is probably why I'm losing everything.
It's very unlike you.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. In the NFL, all I do is look for underdogs, and in college football, I'm such a chalky college football bettor, and I hate that. I'm very aware about that, and I don't know how to change it. It's a flaw inside of me that I just don't know how to change. But that's why we love college football. Joe Tansey at JTansey90, me, John Jansen at JJansen34. That is it for week 11 of college football preview. Can't believe I'm saying this. Week 12 coming up next week. We'll be back next week with more of the college football preview.